So Mark's Gospel. I'm going to read in chapter 10. And it'll be on the screen behind me as well. And verses 13 to 16. Mark writes this. And it's a famous story that's often read at dedications and christenings. But one day some parents brought their children to Jesus so he could touch them, so he could lay his hands upon them, and he could bless them. But the disciples scolded the parents for bothering him. And when Jesus saw what was happening, he was angry with his disciples. And he said to them, "Let the children come to me. Don't stop them." Or as some translations say it, don't hinder them. For the kingdom of God belongs to those who are like these children. And I tell you the truth, anyone who doesn't receive the kingdom of God like a child will never enter it. And then he took the children in his arms, and he placed his hands on their heads, and he blessed them. I've kind of figured out after 19 years of being a parent, that being a parent is not like buying a toaster. I know 19 years, and I've just figured that out. I always wondered why Corbin, when I tried to stick slices of bread in him, would kind of resist. No. I don't know what it is, but when you kind of become a parent, it's a wonderful thing, but nothing really quite prepares you for it. Nothing really gets you quite ready for it. And the wonderful thing about buying a toaster, or not just a toaster, but a Blu-ray player, or any bit of electrical equipment, is when you buy something like that, it normally comes with an instruction manual. And wouldn't it be great if kids came with instruction manuals? It'd be absolutely amazing, because nothing prepares you for being a parent. Nothing. I mean, no one really kind of tells you how to do it. Many people try and tell you how to do it, and there's lots of advice, but nothing really quite prepares you for it. And at last count, I don't know, I still haven't fact-checked this, but last count, there was somewhere in the region of 4,000 books on the subject of how to be a parent. 4,000 books, which if you've ever tried to read 2 of them, you'll know is a problem, because books 2 through to 4,000 spend most of their time disagreeing with book 1 and disagreeing with each other, because there's tons of advice out there on how to do this properly and how to do this best and what choices you should make and what guidance there should be and all the other things that go with being a parent, about whether you do sleep training or no sleep training, or whether you have screens or no screens, whether you have a structured routine in your day or whether you just allow it to be child-led anarchy. I think we went for child-led anarchy. And so you commit to a philosophy, all this advice abounds, and you commit to a way to doing this, doing your best, trying to be a great parent, and you commit to it with all this confidence, and then the child comes along and it makes a nonsense of the whole thing, because no child has ever followed the operating manual that they're supposed to come with. Isn't that right, Sophie? Ha ha, she says. And our instinct has the good intentions, doesn't it? We want to do our best. We want to be the best parent we can be, but I do wonder whether sometimes our idea of parenting and the goal of parenting is not quite what we think it is. Because we do want to be the best parent. And we can understand that because you love your child more than you can ever imagine you'd ever love anything in the world. And you don't really want to mess your kids up. None of us want to mess our kids up. But I want to suggest this morning that the goal of being a parent here is not to be the best, but it's something much more simpler and yet much more difficult. And that's just simply to show our kids, or in your case, Ed and Lucia, to show Sophie what it means to be fully human. Yeah, not perfect, but just human. And there is a difference in that, because it means Sophie gets to see how you cope. Not some curated Instagram highlight reel of all the perfect moments in life and everything you've succeeded brilliantly in, but the actual texture of your life as you live it. The actual texture of your life. She sees how you respond when things go wrong. She watches you when you are tired and when you're frustrated and when you make a mistake. She sees you at your best. Sure, that will happen. I think our kids do see us at our best most days. But more crucially, she'll see you at your worst. And then she'll see what you'll do in response to you at your worst. She sees whether you own your mistakes or you dodge them. She'll see whether you apologize or whether you just dig in. So see whether you get your back up, or whether you get back up from when you fall, or whether you'll stay down. And that's the real curriculum of life. Our kids notice it. Whether we intend it or not, our kids see it all. There's a famous American novelist called James Baldwin, and he said this: that children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed in imitating them. I'm more like my dad than I care to admit. But we never fail to imitate. And that's true. That's true even when it comes to this life of faith, of following Jesus. Because when it comes to following Jesus, the moments that will shape Sophie most profoundly probably won't be the Sunday mornings or the times when you get it right, but it would be the ordinary days, and especially the times when you mess it up big time and you blow it. There's a line that the Apostle Paul writes, which I think is probably one of the bravest things for anybody to write. And he writes this, and I'm paraphrasing it. He says, "Follow me as I follow Christ." Or as some translations say it, imitate me. And on first pass, it almost seems arrogant, doesn't it? Who does Paul think he is? Look at me. Watch how I do it. But the more you read Paul, the more you realize that's not the right reading. It's a wrong reading. He's not being arrogant. Because this is the man who also openly admits that he hasn't arrived yet, that he's still a work in progress. And in another letter, it's the same man who describes this internal war that's going on between the person he knows he should be and the choices he often makes in life. The same man who talks about this persistent thorn in the flesh that he talks about, this persistent problem that never seems to go away. And so Paul isn't describing himself as flawless. He's saying something more honest and far more useful. He's saying, watch me when I get it right, watch me when I get it wrong, and learn from both. And I think that really gets to the heart of what a dedication service is and what we're doing here this morning. Because part of the reason we call this a dedication and not a christening is because we are respecting Sophie's freedom this morning. We are respecting that and hoping that one day she will choose of her own volition to follow Jesus. And of course, we'll pray for her. We'll bless her this morning. We'll ask God's hand upon her life. But primarily, today is about dedicating Ed and Lucy's sister, Auntie Rachel, as godparents, to the task of showing Sophie what a follower of Jesus looks like in the actual unedited conditions of a real life. Like Paul, they are saying to Sophie, follow us as we follow Jesus. Not because they'll do that perfectly, but because they'll do it honestly. They'll do it honestly. And they already know this. They are already they already are aware of this, but it's worth repeating. Because Sophie doesn't need perfect parents. She doesn't. If Sophie grows up believing that faith is about never struggling, or never doubting, or never failing, then what happens when she eventually struggles or doubts or fails? She may wrongly conclude that faith is for people who have it all together. Worse, she may learn somehow to wear a mask and just live a life of pretense, which we don't want that. Or worse still, she might believe that God is only approachable once some sort of perfect, acceptable kind of standard has been reached. And that's precisely what Jesus confronts in Mark chapter 10 in the story that we've just read. Because people are bringing their children to Jesus, asking him to bless them, but the disciples are turning them away. I like how the NLT kind of translates it, scolding them and saying, he's too busy. And they probably think they're being helpful. They presume they're being helpful to Jesus. He's an important person. He's very busy. They've got this task of kind of setting up this filter of who is worthy and who is not to get to him. But thankfully, Jesus sees it, and Mark says he's annoyed by it. He's annoyed by this. The disciples have accidentally turned access into God into something that is managed by bouncers. And Jesus tells his disciples in no uncertain terms, let the children come to me. Do not hinder them. And sometimes, and I'm speaking to us as Christians this morning, not just to Ed and Lucy, but sometimes we hinder people in much more subtle ways. Not by telling them that they're not unwelcome, but by presenting faith as something that belongs to only people who've got it right. And none of us have got it right. And none of us have got it all together. And so without honesty, without vulnerability, we quietly create this impression that the goodness of Jesus is a place where polished people arrive rather than a place where broken people can turn to. And the whole message of Jesus is not about polished people. God has come to us in the middle of our mess, not once we've escaped it or perfected ourselves. Christ entered fully into human weakness and suffering and failure and death itself in order to remove every hindrance between us and God. The door is open. There are no bouncers. And what Sophie needs most to see this is not some performance of perfection from Ed and Lucy and Rachel and us as the church, but the presence of authenticity. We are just real people. She needs to see a faith that rejoices and a faith that grieves. A faith that sometimes walks confidently and sometimes limps. A faith that knows what to do after it fails. A faith that returns to Jesus again and again and again and again. She needs to see that when things go wrong or when she goes wrong, and things will go wrong because life does go wrong, it's just the nature of life, that there is somewhere to turn to, someone to turn to, someone trustworthy, faithful, and true. And so Ed and Lucy and Rachel, Sophie needs to see the real you in order to see the real reality of God. And what's true for Sophie this morning is true for all of us. And some of you are here today because you love this family. And who can blame you? And you wouldn't maybe describe yourself as a person of faith or having a faith at all. You may have tried the God thing and it didn't quite land with you. You might think that God has given up on you. He's not. But you might feel like you've given up on the idea of God entirely. Or maybe you've carried the assumption that faith is just for certain people. People who are certain, people who are perfect, people who've got it together, whatever that means, because I don't know anybody who's got it together. And maybe you won't make the screening process, but Jesus says to you the same thing that he says to these children: come. Not sort yourself out, just come as you are, with all your questions, all your doubts, with your unfinished life. Don't let anything hinder you. He is approachable.